Well, good. I think it's still morning. Good morning to each of you, and welcome to game week. That's kind of where I am. This is an exciting week, obviously, to be down on countdown to Oklahoma. Our players have done a great job last week and continuing in our game plan preparations. Last night we held a mock game where we went through all the situations in practice just to kind of prepare ourselves for opening day down in Norman. We also elected captains. I'd like to announce our captains for this year. Our offensive captains will be G.J. Kinney and Clint Anderson. Defensive captains elected by the team were Cornelius Arnick and Tyron Walker. And a special teams captain, Milton Howell. So those 5 gentlemen will represent us this season as our captains for the team. Let me go ahead and address it. I'm sure there would be some interest. There's been no changes in the status for Damaris Johnson. Anything beyond that would just be speculation. There's been no change in the information we have at this point. And so going forward, he'll remain suspended indefinitely. And with that, let me just let you ask questions.
Coach, if he hasn't been charged or arrested, why suspend him at this point?
Based on the information we have, he hadn't lived up to the standards that we hold at this university and with this program, based on the information we have.
Can you tell us you don't want to comment, put words in his mouth, comment on the situation, but you talk to him, can you tell us anything at all about where his head is right now?
I think he's a very heartbroken young man, much like I am.
Coach, this might be a tough one to answer, but how does that, the big playability, how does that change your mindset going into the big game Saturday?
Well, and again, we've talked about this for sure. The thing that we approach it as a coaching staff and as a team is no different than if we'd had a guy blow a hamstring or break a toe. Those things happen in football, and it is important that as a team and as a coaching staff, we just move forward to the next guy. And we have plans in place, both receivers and in returning, to obviously do the very best we can do. And I'm confident in the young men that we're going to put out there and the coaches that have prepared them.
His act affected a lot of guys. What was the team's reaction?
They were disappointed as well when we announced it. I think it's very difficult for people to understand unless you've been in the locker room or in the meeting room or on the field. Football players move forward. The first thing that our guys wanted to know is, who's going to play those positions, and let's go. It is a harsh reality in football that many times we don't get to play with the guys that we always prepare. And again, oftentimes it's injury, sometimes it's personal issues, but those things happen, and you have to have the next man up mentality, and our guys have really displayed that. I was very pleased with our players over the last 2 days. We had very focused, spirited practices, and I think that's a very encouraging sign for me that they're not getting too distracted.
You said you were heartbroken. You coached him on special.
Oh, absolutely. Well, he's one of our players, and it's the same. And again, I hate to keep putting it. It's not the same, but in some ways, it's the same as if you have a guy that you absolutely love to coach, and he blows a knee out. I mean, you're heartbroken for those guys because it shatters their dreams and what they're wanting to do right now. And I assure you, he is a broken young man, and our prayers are with him as well.
Since Friday, we've all kind of discussed, how disappointed you must be, getting your shot to be head coach,
right,
having your best player suspended. Can you just talk about your emotions and the disappointment that you have?
Well, it's just, and again, I appreciate the question, but that's part of coaching. I mean, I keep bringing it back. It's just no different, than if we had a guy get rolled up in practice. I mean, you have to deal with that, and the longer you coach, the more often that we do that. Leading up to the game against Oklahoma 2 years ago, Tyler Holmes broke a leg, I think, in the week of practice, and he was a returning All-American at left tackle. Those are the kind of adversities that you have to be prepared for if you're going to play this game and coach this game.
Do you prepare for a worst-case scenario where this could be a prolonged timeline where you could go the whole season with this?
Absolutely. I mean, anytime a player is not in place, you have to move forward. It's very likely, very unlikely that you can prepare any other way very well. We're actually, again, believe it or not, we actually prepare as a coaching staff going into this game. Well, we know the players we have. Well, what's our plan B if this guy goes out? Well, it's not as simple sometimes as just putting the next guy in. Sometimes you have to shuffle guys around and be able to put the pieces of the puzzle back together. And so those are things that coaching staffs routinely do, and we'll continue to fight that battle all season. It won't be a one-week deal for us.
As you started looking towards OU, how difficult has it been to prepare for them on both sides of the ball?
Well, that's a loaded question in a sense that it's very difficult because they're a very good football team. It has not been difficult because we've been distracted. The distractions have been minimal to our team and to our coaching staff in terms of all you got to do is put the film on and you'll get focused pretty quickly. It's a very good football team, but again, what we can do is control what we can do, and so we're focused on trying to take in the best Tulsa team we can take in.
But can you talk specifically about guys like Ricky Johnson and Jordan James, guys that are going to have to play and play well for you guys and Norman?
Yeah, we're excited about our receiving core. You mentioned Ricky Johnson. Ricky's had significant playing time over the last 2 years. He'll continue to be a factor. Jordan James is a guy that came on out of spring and has continued to show us that he has big playability. Thomas Robertson has had a great week of practice. It's good to have him back, another veteran player. And then you sprinkle in some of our new guys. Brian Burnham is not new, but I think he'll get on the scenes very quickly this fall. Brian's a guy that had been a safety for the first 2 years that he was here, and we worked into receiver this last spring, and I think he's going to do very well. So you add to that some of the newcomers at the freshman core. I think our receiving core is very solid.
Do you just treat them as if they're just going to take on more of a role, or do you actually treat them as newcomers who wouldn't have played very much to begin with?
Who are you talking about?
Guys like Jordan, who played well in spring.
Right. Well, those guys have been in the mix all fall. So literally the big change is you just take one guy out of the lineup, and you have about 7 or 8 receivers that we feel like are in the mix, and so one guy gets less, and 6 guys get more.
Can you talk about Thomas Robertson? When did he come back full speed, and has it been a tough time for him, or just something that you had to hold him out until he was 100%?
Well, Thomas had some foot surgery back. I don't know the timeline back. I want to think early summer or late spring, and so there was a slow. He was slowed down through the summer. And we were able to get him back, and he's worked into it. He's tried to bring him along slow because he didn't have the conditioning basis of having gone through the summer fully like all the other guys did. But he's done very well this fall.
But he's full speed.
Yes.
Week? At
least, yeah.
You've had some talented freshmen emerge during fall camp. Can you talk a little bit about Gary Owens, Garrett Garrett, and what they bring to the table?
Right. Gary Owens is a lightning in a bottle type guy, speed, change of direction, not a big guy. Kieris Garrett gives you that 6'3" matchup problem that can run. Both of those guys are still experiencing a learning curve of being in Division I college football as a freshman, but I think they've done very well. We expect both of them to play and contribute as this season goes on, and hopefully have a great year. But those two seem to be head and shoulders above the other freshmen that are here.
Do you see their roles being accelerated, given what the circumstances are this week?
I don't know that it would be any different this week than what we would have expected otherwise. I just think that maybe those opportunities might show up a little sooner, but I think that they'll be a part of what's going on this week, but I don't expect them to have, big roles be very isolated. I think if you'd look back at what we did with Jatarian Douglas a year ago, we spotted him into some situations where he had a specific role. That's what we're looking to do with Kieris and with Gary, is to limit what we ask them to do as a true freshman, but get them ready to be able to make some plays and get them some touches.
What do you think the biggest question will be in your mind as you head into Saturday? Will it be how the young players play in DeMaris's absence, or is there something else that you're still concerned about?
No, I think it'll be how our veterans play. I think if our veterans will come in and play and do what we're able to do, then we can make a good run at this. Where you get in trouble again is when we start trying to transfer everything over to Oklahoma and what they do. We can't control all that. They're a very, very good football team. We can't help them. And so our job is to execute. And if we'll come out and execute and we come out and do a good job of doing what we do, then we've got a shot to compete. Otherwise, the inexperienced guys are the inexperienced guys. They're not gonna be the difference makers in this game. It's the veterans on this team that are the difference makers that we have to depend on, and I expect that they will.
What's it going to be like for a player like Trey Watts to get to go to Norman and play on the same field where his dad had so much success during his career?
I'm sure it'll be emotional. I think it'll be emotional for a lot of our Oklahoma kids. That this is a big place that they've grown up, being a part of, watching it. Some of them were recruited there. Some of them were not. Some of them wanted to be recruited there. Those are I think always the issues when you go into Norman and play at OU. But most of the guys that we talk to are very excited about that opportunity and look forward to it. I'm very confident that they're not going to get over their heads with it.
You talked last week about there not being more difference between the first game in coaching than maybe this game where you have 28 years of experience. Are there going to be any butterflies akin to what you remembered 28 years ago?
Yeah, I'm confident that there will be butterflies. I'm confident that we'll be very excited about it. I think what you and I talked about, Mike, was comparing it to my first game at Eastwood when I'd never coached a game. And I think the correlation loses a little bit of this is not like the first game I've ever been in, but it will be the first Division I head coaching experience, and there's no shortcut to experience. I mean, we're going to be nervous and excited, but I'm reasonably sure 4 or 5 years from now you're going to ask me about the opening game, and I'm probably going to feel some butterflies and be pretty nervous about that too.
In the same kind of tone, DJ Kinney, when you think about it, his third game as a college quarterback, he was in Norman, Oklahoma. How different is it in Game 3 compared to Game 26 going into Norman playing this game? Well,
and again, you're kind of answering my question for me, Eric, in the sense that that's why I keep going back to the veteran ball club that we have. Those guys, the guys that have been in the fire, are going to make a difference. I'm reasonably sure that was Trent Dupee's either first game to start or second or third game to start. He was a true freshman. Brian DeShane, I believe, was forced into the lineup because of possibly, if my memory may be messed up on this, but I think with Holmes getting hurt, we were playing a lot of puppies in that game 2 years ago, and those guys are still guys that have logged a bunch of games for us now. And so I think, and to answer your question with GJ specifically, he's radically different as an experienced quarterback than he was a guy in his second or third game collegiately after sitting out for 2 seasons of high school. And I'm pretty excited that I've got that guy leading our troops going in.
Do you hope or ask him not to try to do too much? It always goes back to the circumstances last week, but do you hope he doesn't try to do too much in a big game?
No, I hope he does way too much. I really do. I hope he doesn't try to do too much, and I know that's what you're asking. That's a little tongue-in-cheek for me, but I think he's got to play high. I mean, I think he's got to play at a high level because he's one of our playmakers. What I don't want him to do, and I think this is what you're leading up to, is I don't want him to feel the pressure that he's the only guy out there. He still needs to be that point guard that we've bragged on him about in being able to distribute the ball and get the ball. We've still got a lot of playmakers on the field, and if he'll do a good job of doing that and make some plays himself, I think we'll play well.
Do all of your wide receivers know how to play each position? Are there multiple guys who can fill in for Damaris?
That's a great question, and really for the most part, yes. They're interchangeable in terms of inside receiver, outside receiver. You guys that follow Damaris enough know that he's been an inside and an outside receiver. So in some ways, not every player that we have is a hybrid. Some are inside, some are outside. So, there's probably not every receiver is interchangeable, but in the top 6, I would say most of them are.
Who can fill in inside?
Inside receivers, again, Jordan James does a great job at that. Thomas Roberson does a good job at that. Willie Carter kind of gets left out of the picture when we talk about receivers because he's our hybrid. But inside receiver, Ricky Johnson has played that for 2 years. So, again, I think those guys will do a good job there.
Coach, is this the best quarterback you're probably going to see this season, Landry Jones?
You're not going to lead me into that one. I appreciate that. That'll be the best one we're going to see this week. Good try.
Coach, from media day, the confidence from your team was really high about being able to compete with big schools after going in and beating Notre Dame.
Right.
After what's happened the past week, past couple days, have you sensed that confidence level change at all, or is it still?
Honestly, no. I mean, I know that's maybe shocking to others, but our guys really believe in themselves and each other. They talked about all fall or all summer. We know adversity's coming. We just don't know what it is. And so when you see adversity, you go, well, that's what we prepared for. And so we've got to be strong enough to overcome it. And I think they've been pretty resilient so far for the distractions that have been in front of them.
In that same vein, 2 coaches have done really well against Oklahoma and Bob Stoops, Gary Patterson, Les Miles. Their teams were very confident when they went there and won there. Is that? I'm sure you are like, well, it is Oklahoma, they're great, but you've got to convince your team like Dave Rader did 12 years ago that you can win this game. Is that basically what it comes down to? You got to convince your players, hey.
Well, the other side of it, John, is that if they're not convinced, there's no chance. And so there's no question in my mind that a team has to believe in themselves enough to believe that they can go in an underdog situation in a tough environment and pull it off. And the best evidence for me to use is you guys, we guys, have been a part of seeing that last year. It wasn't Oklahoma. It wasn't number 1. We don't pretend it to be, but we have gone into hostile environments and been successful. And so that's what we are banking on, using that experience to help us get ready to go into Norman on Saturday.
We've talked about the defense, just the experience level. I counted it up. You've got 6 guys that played 10 straight games together on last year, not counting some of the other guys. Just the experience level.
Again, that's the part that you've heard me say it over and over again. Those are the things that give me some comfort and peace, is because we have guys that have been in the fire. Defensively, there's a group that took a lot of body blows. Numbers wise, as some of you have reported, we're not ranked very highly, but yet in other categories, as turnovers, interceptions, those kind of things, we did very, very well. And we played well enough defensively to get 10 wins. Many of those guys, most of those guys return, at least to the nucleus of that bunch returns. And, again, I'm very excited about what Coach Guy brings to the table. I think what we've done so far, what I've seen so far, gives me hope that we're going to be a better defense.
Was the Wildcat package going to be a part of your game plan going into this season? Is that something, without going into personnel specifics, is that something you guys are going to have to?
Yeah, we still intend for it to be. Yeah.
Because returning kicks, is that going to be by committee? Is that going to be one specific guy you need to get to return kicks all the time, or how are you dealing with that?
Well, we'll kind of watch it and see how it plays out. We've got 2 or 3 guys that we're sorting through right now. Again, we practice these guys every day. Very clear in my mind that you'll see Marco Nelson doing some of that. I think you'll see Trey Watts doing some of that. Willie Carter. Those 3 guys have been consistently part of the group that we've been training really as long as I was special teams coach, or at least for 2 years with those guys. I feel good about what they can bring to the table. We've got some other younger guys that and some guys that have some past history of doing a good job returning punts. Milton Howell was an outstanding punt returner coming out of JC, as was J.D. Ratliff. So those guys will get some looks, but I feel really good about Marco, Trey, and Willie.
With 3 of your 4 September games being against top 10 teams, just what's that do for the program as far as exposure starting Saturday?
Well, exposure is not going to be an issue either for us. The top 10 games, I think that gets us national exposure. The fact that we have 11 of 12 on TV, and I think 9 or 10 of those are national broadcasts. So I think exposure is definitely, in the works. What is a big deal is that, when you're playing top 10 teams, you're going to get across that line when they report all the scores. So it gives us an opportunity, and our guys have been talking about that from the very beginning of what a great opportunity it is.
When you have all the facts, is that when you'll make the permanent decision as far as the punishment? Are you still gathering facts?
Exactly. I mean, the reality is we have to base every decision on the information we have. And I don't want to pretend to think that I have all the information. As information comes in that changes, then we'll look at any kind of change at that time. But anything beyond is really speculation, and I really just, it's hard to speculate on what you don't know.
Can you talk about how
At least I know what I don't know.
talk about how your defense prepares for in Oklahoma with the Landry Jones, the Brian Royals, and just a lot of playmakers on that offense?
Very difficult to prepare for when you have the kind of playmakers they have. Again, we go back to, I think that's one of the things that has helped us over time, is we've had enough playmakers on offense that you can't just isolate. So as we defend, we see the same thing. I mean, Landry Jones, Ryan Broyles, a running back by committee, a lot of playmakers on their offensive unit. They've consistently done that. I think the play of their quarterback is what really stands out as you watch their film. He's very cool, calm, does a good job of kind of directing traffic, like I was referring to GJ, of getting the ball to the right guys.
When you meet Bob before the game, anything you guys talk about?
I don't know. I'm kind of anxious. Yeah, I don't know. Might have to ask him for an autograph or something.
Did you get a chance to watch the All Access stuff that ESPN did on OU?
No, I haven't. No.
So how difficult is it, historically, obviously, not many teams have won in Norman, but how difficult is it going on the road playing the top team for your very first game of the year?
Well, I don't have anything to compare it to. So, I mean, that's just what it is. That's the schedule we have. Tulsa has gone into Norman and won. I know that for a fact.
What do you remember about 1996?
I remember watching Wes Caswell catch a pass over I think to the right side boundary and keep running until he scored. I've seen that replayed a few times.
Coach, you talked about how you want your team to focus on what they can control. What are some, somewhat specific things you've asked those guys that you're reiterating, to control going into Norman?
You have to prepare. You have to prepare in such a way that you don't put yourself behind the 8 ball by mental mistakes. And it's a tough enough environment. You can't help them by making mental mistakes on lining up, not executing a play, being in the wrong gap on defense, having wrong coverage. I mean, there's just no leeway. And so the things that we continue to emphasize are, look, perfect execution. I mean, do what we're supposed to do and encourage each other to continue all week long. I mean, it's one of those things that don't get caught up in what you can't control. We control what we can control, and that's us. And so we'll continue to try to take that tact.